The nurse at the group home where David was being held as a prisoner looked up from her clipboard. "Daisy McGrath," she called out, "ever cross your mind you have a visitor?" David's jaw tightened. Every time they used that name, it felt like another reminder that they didn't see him for who he was. He rolled his power chair forward and stopped right in front of the nurse. "Who came to see me?" he asked sharply. The nurse glanced down at the chart. "Your brother, Mark." David froze for a moment, his hands resting on the controls of his power chair. His heart started pounding. Of all people, Mark. He hadn't seen his brother since everything went wrong. Mark sat down across from him and gave a small, awkward smile. "Hey, sis." David's eyes darkened, he rolled his chair closer. Ben changed my name," David said bitterly. "Did it without me knowing. He must have changed it illegally." Mark let out a short laugh. Ben didn't know." David's hands tightened on the armrests. "Then who did?" Mark leaned back, expression serious. "Ben put the paperwork in Vin's diaper bag. When Vin went back to his biological family, Ben called me, told me, 'Take care of your sister for me.'" David swallowed hard. "Mom and Dad won't agree to this." Mark's voice went cold. "They're done with you. After what you and Ben did to Vin, they don't want anything to do with you anymore." Mark stood up, pushing the chair back. "Have a good life, Daisy." David was left alone, the name echoing in his head long after Mark was gone. Mark turned toward the nurse and forced his voice steady. "David, she's ready for her bottom surgery tomorrow." The nurse's face softened immediately. "I'm proud of you for being here for her. What day will you be available to come back and see her after the surgery?" Mark's throat tightened, his eyes filled with tears, not because he believed it but because it hurt to say it. "I want to see her afterward," he said quietly, "but she told me to stay out of her life, so I'm listening to her wishes." It was a lie, a careful one, a cruel one. The nurse nodded, clearly moved. "I'll come back around later to check on her, and I'll let the team know." Mark made the call as soon as he was alone. "It's done." Vin didn't answer right away. "He got the surgery?" Vin finally asked. Mark smirked. "They believe he's transgender." Vin let out a slow breath. "And they asked if you'd come visit him." "Yeah." "What did you say?" Mark chuckled quietly. "I fake cried, told them she asked me to stay out of her life." Vin laughed bitterly. "The nurse ate that up right." Mark grinned. Like a little baby getting candy for the first time. They both knew what they'd done. And neither sounded sorry. John looked up. "Who was that, Vin?" "Mark," Vin said flatly. "He said David's going in for bottom surgery tomorrow." John sighed. "Vin, I know you're still hurting, but are you taking this too far?" Vin snapped. "Too far? David mutilated me my whole life. He sent me to horrible group homes. He told caregivers and me I had a low IQ. He told me my parents died in a fucking car crash my entire childhood and young adulthood. And I'm taking it too far." John stayed quiet, letting it land. John reached over and took Vin's iPad. "Put it down, talk to me." Vin's voice cracked. "If I have Asperger's and not low IQ, then why did I get so fucked over? Were the tests wrong, or am I just a complete idiot?" John moved closer. "You're not an idiot, everyone around you lied, over and over." Vin trembled. "I don't know what's wrong with me." "There's nothing wrong with you," John said firmly. Vin wiped his face. "It feels like it." John leaned forward. "People target vulnerable kids because they can, kids who trust adults. Kids who are different, neurodivergent, scared, or isolated. If you're taught you're less than, you stop questioning, you comply because you think you're wrong and they're right." Vin crumpled, tears running down. "I tried so hard, I didn't know they were lying." John pulled him close. "I know, you survived something no one should have put you through." Sam stepped closer. "Vin, maybe you should go back to Mike, your new therapist, he might help." Vin panicked. "So I can get kidnapped again, turned into a woman again." "Vin," John said softly. Vin exhaled, defeated. "Fine, make the appointment then." Vin spoke to Sam later. "Mom, I'm sorry about what I said, I know you were just trying to help." Sam nodded gently. "I understand, I know it's hard to trust, especially after David, but Mark won't do anything like that." Vin gave a small nod. I know. The room was quiet. Mike sat across from Vin. Before we start, how are you feeling in your body? Tight bracing, Vin said. Nothing bad is going to happen, you control the pace, say pass if it's too much. Vin nodded. Okay. Mike leaned back. Last session we talked about adults telling you who you are instead of asking. Today, I want to understand you. Vin's voice was quiet. Okay. Mike said gently, intelligence has nothing to do with being abused. Trauma doesn't happen because someone is stupid. It happens because someone else exploits trust and power. Vin's eyes flicked up. So I didn't miss something obvious. No, Mike said firmly, you adapted, that's intelligence. Vin admitted, I still don't know who I'm supposed to be. Mike nodded. Your wants were dangerous before, your nervous system learned to shut them down, we'll work slowly to get them back. Vin thought for a moment. Can I ask, what if I feel like wanting revenge? Mike stayed calm. Having those thoughts doesn't make you evil, it's a signal of unresolved trauma. Feelings are different from actions. Vin let out a shaky breath. So I'm not evil, but I shouldn't act on it. Exactly, Mike said, we'll work safely with your anger. Vin nodded. Okay. The next day, David lay in the dim hospital room. The nurse had told him Mark said he wanted no visitors. David looked at the returned letters on the side table, returned to sender. No, he whispered. Everything clicked. Mark hadn't misunderstood, he had lied, he had ensured David was alone. Can I see what my brother told you? David asked the nurse, voice trembling. He said you asked him to stay away, she replied. David's hands shook. I never said that. The nurse nodded. I'll update it. David closed his eyes, feeling the final betrayal. Mark hadn't chosen Vin, he hadn't chosen David, he had chosen himself. The nurse entered David's room later. Daisy, it's time for post-op care, how does it feel? David muttered, pain, but really, it was the emptiness of isolation, guilt, and knowing what he had done to Vin. The nurse worked quietly and professionally. David lay there, realizing this wasn't punishment, it was consequence. The next day, Vin arrived at the group home. Vin, John said gently, we can leave. You don't have to do this. I know, Vin said. Alan's dead, I can't get answers from him, but David is still here. I need him to explain himself face to face. The loudspeaker crackled. Daisy McGrath to the visitor room. David sat across from him in a power chair. The silence between them stretched, heavy with years of lies and betrayal. Vin, I get that you're mad, David said. Mad? I'm more than mad, Vin shot back. John handed Vin the IQ tests, 3 normal and 3 doctored. Asperger's rings a bell, Vin said. David stuttered, that's a different Samuel. Cut the bullshit, Vin snapped. No more lies, tell me everything. David tried to regain control. Vin, you're having an episode. I'm not now, fucking talk, god damn it, Vin yelled. David sighed. Fine, remember that family about to adopt you before John and Alan. Vin nodded. I made a deal with John and Alan. If you had more mental disabilities, they wouldn't adopt you and I'd keep getting paid to help. Vin's hands shook. John, back me up before I. John immediately locked Vin's joystick to prevent violence. You're not hurting anyone, you're safe, John said firmly. David whispered, I ruined you. Vin choked out, you stole my life, you don't get to diagnose me ever again. Before leaving, Vin turned to the nurse. Remove me from her visitor list, I'm never coming back. The nurse nodded calmly. I'll note no further contact from you. Vin turned to John. Let's go home. John nodded. Let's go. At home, Billy, Sam, Max and Link were in the living room. Max asked Vin how was it seeing David. Vin grinned. Well, if I wasn't disabled, I'd probably be behind bars right about now. Billy asked, you ask him about the IQ tests. Yes, Vin said. Oh, and another family was going to adopt me before John and Alan. If that happened, I might never have found you guys. Sam nodded. So if David hadn't helped, you might have been with another family and never met us. Vin shrugged. Maybe not. Max asked, have you talked about Ben? Vin shook his head. No. John said, I was about to kill him. Vin turned to him serious. If you got locked up, I would have had to stay there. John nodded. And that's why I didn't. You were locked up most of your life. Why would I give you more? Vin smiled softly. Thanks, little bro. John smirked. You're welcome, big bro. The tension eased not because everything was fixed, but because Vin finally wasn't carrying it alone anymore.